Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Nuggets News. Today we're on the first leg of our national tour over in Perth and we're at Power Ledger headquarters with David Martin. How you going, David?
Really well, how are you?
Good mate, good.
Thanks for coming across.
Oh mate, it's my pleasure. It's beautiful here in Perth, so you're very lucky.
Day. You picked the right day for it.
Great part of the world, mate. So it's been a huge year for Power Ledger already. Since the ICO, not only in price have we gone from under 10 cents to $2 today, but you guys have already achieved so much. Origin Energy deals, Tech Mahindra in India, paving the way for deals in Europe. Do you want to talk about everything you've already achieved?
Happy to talk about absolutely everything, and and thank you for your support all the way along. It's been through making our product and the opportunity known through sources like yourself that we've been able to have the spread and the reach that we have. So it's been really great. It's nice to be supported by your homegrown supporters. But it's been a really big sort of nearly 6 months since we closed the ICO, and that's given us the resources we need to take what was a peer-to-peer trading application and turn it into the platform that we aspire it to be, and to really open some doors in other markets. So India is massive for us. The project we're running with Tech Mahindra there is looking at microgrids in developing economies like India, and there are 400 million people in India that don't have access to power supplies today, and so it's an enormous market, an enormous opportunity, and a really important thing to do to find a more sustainable way economically and environmentally for providing that 400 million people with adequate and reliable power supplies. So that's huge for us. The trial with Origin was great because that took us from a kind of a disruptive technology to working with one of the incumbents and looking at how our technology can help disrupt the industry without destroying the value of some of the incumbents. So Origin looking at how peer-to-peer trading can form part of their normal retail product suite. So that trial is ongoing. First phase of that's looked at the value that accrues to consumers as well as the impact on the financial position of a retailer, and that's gone really well. It's been a really detailed data management exercise in the first phase, and looking forward to taking that into a new space. And another exciting project that we're working on here that I don't think we've discussed yet is the northern property development. So property development north of Perth at a place called Northern that will ultimately have 160 homes in it. And the property developers are taking a completely new look at how a typical property development gets built. So normally, property developer comes in, puts in the roads, puts in all the plumbing, and puts in the electrical infrastructure, and then hands that over to the authority, to the power company or the water company, and then just sells the land and walks away. The guys we're working with at Northern have got a different view. They're saying rather than building all of this new headworks to supply this new development, they're going to put the generation and energy storage on the other side of the fence. And in doing that, provide electricity to consumers at an enormous discount to what's available in the retail market at the moment. And I think the eyes of the property industry are very firmly on that project. When we can get it up and running and demonstrate the value, demonstrate the security and how easy it is, and how much lower cost it is for consumers, I think that's going to become the way property developments happen in Australia and around the world. So for me, that is a big leap in changing the way we think about how electricity supplies are provided and funded. But there's plenty more going on as well. The next project in Tasmania is still ticking away. The projects down in White Gum Valley are actually in commercial development deployment now, so that's great, earning revenues on that basis. And the trial in Thailand will be enormous for us. So that's another microgrid, but not in a developing economy. That's in a pocket of one of the biggest cities in the world. So the guys from BCPG, their chairman, their CEO, one of their directors, and some of their commercial people are actually in Perth on Monday next week. They're going to come down and look at the trial site that we've run down in Fremantle and have a look at the platform and see how we take what is a microcosm in Fremantle and turn that into a much bigger opportunity in a massive city like Bangkok.
Yeah. Have you already seen the landscape and the attitude towards blockchain and Power Ledger change? So I know that one of the pushbacks that I got a lot was the government and the legacy power corporations aren't going to just allow you to come in and on their grounds and whatnot. But have you already seen that attitude change, and is it looking like it's going to be more promising in developing countries? And how has the Power Ledger team itself grown in numbers? And you've got just trees everywhere that you're planting. I think so.
I think we spent the first 12 months of our existence banging our head against the wall saying the world has changed. So electricity supplies don't, they don't just occur the way that they normally used to. People are out there installing PV panels or installing batteries. They're looking at doing things themselves. So our first 12 months was about preparing the market or the industry for a change that was already coming. So the genie was well out of the bottle before we said we need to do something before this all falls apart. So and in that regard, we've had pretty good acceptance in Australia and other parts of the world where we can demonstrate that distributed energy supplies that are owned and operated by consumers are going to be an enormous part of the future. And there's no avoiding that. In Perth now, more than 1 in 4 households has rooftop solar panels. And if the uptake in batteries is the same, then the current system just will not work under its current governance framework. So a system like Power Ledgers that supports peer-to-peer trading, that creates a distributed energy market that's low cost and effective and secure, has to be a big part of a future where most of the generation is owned by the consumers themselves. So in that regard, the industry has, despite initial pushbacks because of confusion around the technology, confusion around cryptocurrencies and those things, I think the industry itself is really starting to pay attention. And we're seeing that companies like Origin, big companies like BCPG in Thailand. And then you look at Gemma's now going to Davos, the World Economic Forum, at the end of January, and we're talking at probably the world's most premier economic conference. Which is traditionally a very conservative approach to global economics, and where they're talking about blockchain technology. So I think acceptance has, over the last 12 or 18 months, has really increased, and it's less of a struggle now, excuse me, for us to kind of pave the way for a conversation around blockchain-supported power trading.
Yeah, and definitely that's why we're doing our best to get the word out there, because it's so frustrating when I read mainstream media articles about, Bitcoin is this dark market currency and every other blockchain technology out there is a rip-off and it's not going to do anything. Where 2018, I think, is the year where people realise that there's these unique projects solving real-world problems. And as you said, you've already won a few awards, and I'm sure there's plenty more to come. Do you want to touch on that?
Gemma's on her way in a couple of hours to Las Vegas to represent Power Ledger at the Extreme Tech Challenge. So we're fortunate enough to be in the top 10 in that global competition, and the top 3 go through to an opportunity to present their product or their platform or their business to Richard Branson on Nugget Island. So,
fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed, but it's great global recognition, I think, of the industry and what we've done and the reach we've been able to achieve in the last little while. So it's great from that perspective, but it's also great to be seeing that blockchain technology is being seen as less of a dark art and more of a, as you say, something that's going to solve potential real-world problems. And our focus from the get-go has been we're looking at trading a real-world commodity. This is a mums and dads commodity. So you need to build a certain level of legitimacy if you're going to play in a market that is it's a retail energy market. So our ICO was constructed in a way that was very transparent with all the disclosures, full view of asset, full view of the ATO. For those very reasons, we didn't want to be accused of kind of hiding in the shallows with the rest of the cryptocurrency mob, but building legitimacy, demonstrating how it works, demonstrating the proper business opportunities that sit behind it, I think are a big part to making sure that this part of the economy, this growing part of the economy, is taken seriously.
Yeah. Looking forward, mate, one of the things that I'm most excited about is asset germination. Yep. So the ability for 100 people to each own 1% of a solar farm or a wind farm or plenty of other things I'll get you to describe. But are you excited about that, and have we had any deals, or what's the roadmap look like?
So AGE, so asset germination events, we've targeted for the middle of this year. From a technology perspective, I don't want to say it's easy, but the technology perspective, I think that deadline is absolutely achievable. We know what we intend to do and how we intend to do it to make to be able to fractionalise an asset. There are challenges around how you deal with that from a legal perspective, from a taxation perspective, and they're not insurmountable by any stretch, but we're going into an uncharted territory in this sort of space. So we're pretty much writing the rule book as we go, and that's what happens in a new industry. But we think we'll get there. And the exciting thing about AGEs is when we started the process of the AGE, or the concept of the AGE, we saw this is a great opportunity to put an asset on the ground and give consumers the ability to own a share. So if you live in a 40-storey apartment building and you don't even have a roof, here's a chance to have rooftop solar panels on your little box in a 40-storey building. And that was really exciting because it made distributed renewable energy available to more people. But as we go through that product and the project, we're starting to see the true potential for an AGE. And it's not just about fractionalising an asset and letting people share the value of the energy and the value of the energy. It's about providing a low-cost project financing opportunity as well for groups in the communities and small-scale developers that can't compete against the large-scale guys and the big incumbents in this space because they can't get access to debt at the same price, all those sorts of things. So the AGE really does present us with an end-to-end value creation opportunity where we can raise project capital, we can demonstrate secure revenue streams from an asset, and then we can fractionalise that asset and give the benefit of those value streams and energy flows to multiple consumers at the other end. And that's a really exciting opportunity for us because it's not just about giving people access to renewable generation, it's actually throwing up or creating a new investment environment that's really going to increase the penetration of distributed renewables.
I was going to say, what you've described there sort of reminds me a bit of people that are passionate about flipping houses. So they'll go and do up a house and they'll get it ready and then they'll sell it to someone else. So people will be able to make a solar farm, a wind farm, develop it and sell it on to someone else, and they'll be able to make that money and move on to the next project and make the entire...
Absolutely.
That's just so exciting.
You're creating an ecosystem that says here is an investment opportunity that has really secure payback terms, that has customers at the end that are going to, they're going to be secure customers because ultimately they're going to be the owners as well. And it gives us the ability to, as you say, create that investment environment where somebody can take or access investment capital up front, deploy it, move on to, fractionalise that asset and sell it off to the consumers that funded in the first place or a new group of consumers, investors, and then take their initial seed investment and do it again and again and again. And it, from my perspective as an energy professional and somebody who's really passionate about renewable energy, it's what we're doing is giving an opportunity to put more and more renewables out in more and more places and get a more and more efficient, resilient energy supply that is low carbon, low cost, and then owned ultimately by the people who are going to benefit from it. Yeah. It's a great opportunity for us.
So, mate, looking forward, have you changed what your goals are? I think you've already achieved and even surprised the early investors what Power Ledger has achieved in a short amount of time.
Yep.
Have your goals changed now for the next 12 months, and where do you maybe see this in 5 or 10 years now?
I don't think the goals have changed per se. I think the timeframes have probably switched around a little bit, and the opportunities they may be bigger sooner. But our intention in undertaking the ICO was that we could take our application and turn it into a platform and make it available to more people more quickly in more places. And so that's the opportunity that sits in front of us now, and the opportunity with things with groups like Tech Mahindra in India and BCPG in Thailand and others are just showing that how fast we actually can spread the reach of the platform. And so that, I guess, emboldens us in some ways to say that you can sit down in Perth at the edge of the world and talk about these things, but you can actually go out and have a real impact. And we now have the resources through the ICO to put some muscle behind those efforts. And markets like the US and Europe aren't out of reach either. So. That's the focus, and it was always going to be the focus, but it probably brings things in a little sooner than they might have otherwise. It's a great ride, it's been great fun, and every day brings a new opportunity. So the challenge, as much as building the cadre of the business to have the capacity and the capability of the really clever, sharp minds that are sitting out there now, and put them to these challenges and these opportunities, and just watch magic things happen.
From what I see around, the office space, the team, and I just think there is just so much potential. There's so many opportunities to expand in so many different directions. You've touched on the US and Europe, but obviously I'd love to see this all be implemented close to home here in Australia. But I honestly think that developing countries and the way you can change the world with those microgrids and work from inside out rather than the traditional system is just so huge, mate. So best of luck with everything, and thanks for having us today.
Thanks for coming across. It's great to see you.
Cheers, mate. Cheers. Awesome, that was great.